Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Walking Between Shadows. We're your host. I'm Ben.
I'm Taryn.
And this week, I want to start out by saying thank you for everybody that's come along and viewed and subscribed to us. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and that notifications bell, but share these videos too while you're at it. We appreciate everything that you do. We love what we do, and you just keep us coming back. So this week, Taryn, you have spent really the last week watching the trial of David Swift.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. And we covered this just a couple of weeks ago in anticipation of the trial coming.
Mm-hmm. We did.
So
yeah, we did. So go back and watch that.
Yeah, go back and watch those videos and stuff. But while we're at it, why don't you go ahead and just take us back and remind the audience of, what this case is, where it was, and how it started.
Well, this took place in Dyersburg, Tennessee in 2011. And Karen Swift went missing on actually October the 29th, October the 30th, around that time of 2011. So you and I covered this case 2 times before. So like you said, y'all go back and watch these. So you're not just completely in the dark about it.
Because through the case this past week, you've learned that there's a lot of things that maybe we need to add to and correct along the way.
Absolutely. Yes, there are. Yes, there are. Yeah, and I think it's important just to start from the beginning. Let's start from the beginning. I know Karen and David were married for 22 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a divorce during those 22 years. They had 4 children, and they remarried. So they were in their second marriage to each other. David actually had a child with another woman. So that's kind of what caused the first divorce. Soon after that divorce, they remarried again.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was 7 months after. And they remarried and had the 2 youngest daughters, Ashley and Keely Swift.
Mm-hmm.
Karen had an affair. I believe it was in 2006. And David abruptly moved the family to Dyersburg, Tennessee from Conway, Arkansas.
Yeah, so they weren't originally from Dyersburg.
Yes, that's true. When they moved to Dyersburg from Conway, Arkansas, their oldest son, Preston, stayed in Conway. I believe he was already in college.
Mm-hmm.
And Karen didn't even get to see the house that they were moving into. He didn't get to pick it out. This was how quick David moved Karen and the girls and the next to the youngest son, Dustin, to Dyersburg, Tennessee.
Yeah.
David worked as a maintenance manager for, I believe it was Tenaris.
Yeah. They're a pipe fitting company.
Okay. And I guess he did okay with that because he was able to provide for the family, and he never really ever wanted Karen to work. So there was affairs going on during this marriage between the both of them.
And she did make some money. She did some odd jobs and stuff like that. She did some landscaping and house cleaning and just odd jobs. At the time, wasn't she getting certified to be a personal trainer?
Yes, she was. Yeah. And this just began about a year before Karen was murdered. She was picking up jobs, doing landscaping, and she was very fit and met some friends through doing this training, working out and stuff at the Y.
Mm-hmm.
She met her very close friends actually there, Kathy Bonus. Kathy also owned like a dance place. So Karen made some friends pretty quick in Dyersburg. But David did not. And so we found out that Karen, she was doing these odd jobs for like Habitat for Humanity. She was cleaning houses.
Mm-hmm.
She was cleaning her friend Kathy Bonus' house and dance studio. So the girls, I believe, were in that dance class as well. Ashley and Keely Swift were in Kathy's dance school. So, I mean, she made friends pretty easily. She was very fun from what it looks like. Karen had a good time. And she was making this extra money doing these jobs because she was getting ready for a divorce.
Yeah.
You know, the accusations were that David was pretty controlling. But what do you think about that? Because, we've heard some things about what Karen was doing.
Well, I think it all started from the fact that, David was the breadwinner and he worked, I think third shift mostly.
Mm-hmm.
But she wanted, I mean, it's kind of like, I guess, any relationship or anybody, they want to feel their own version of success and they want to feel like they're contributing to whatever.
Yeah.
And I think he held her back, because he made enough money to be the breadwinner. And, he really convinced her that she didn't have to work or didn't need to work. And, there were some other things going on about her too.
And yeah, he was making pretty good money, but I mean, he was spending quite a bit of money from what he says. She was going out drinking and had credit cards, that she owed money on, quite a bit of money on.
Mm-hmm.
So she wanted to keep up with some of these friends that she had met in Dyersburg that had quite a bit of money and were successful, and these women were working, and so there was that going on. And I don't know. David even made some claims that Karen cleaned out his bank account.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think they even ended up having two separate accounts near the end of their, this marriage or before she was murdered.
And we'll reference his initial interview in 2011 by, was it the TBI that did that long interview with him?
Yes.
We'll reference some of that. And he did, in fact, say in that interview that they had separate accounts.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. He did say that. And that Karen was, not coming home. She was doing a lot of drinking and hanging out with friends. And, these friends, we found out some good stuff about that too. Like supposedly, these are the swingers. These are, there was a lot going on.
Well,
and there's a lot going on.
The neighborhood that they lived in that Karen lived in was north of Dyersburg, a few miles.
And it wasn't just like in town either.
No, it was kind of a country setting.
But when Karen and David first moved to Dyersburg, I believe that's where she met her newest friends, the first people that she met, and that was the Garens. So it was Jamie Garin and his daughter-in-law was Jenny Garin. Mm-hmm. So Karen would go over there and hang out with them.
And they lived like across the street, right?
Right.
Yeah.
There was even accusations that Jamie and Karen were having a thing.
Yeah.
And that David would watch her, across the street. And he even saw her kiss or make out with Jenny Garin, the daughter-in-law of Jamie Garin. So that was a lot, know. And I'm in the comments during this trial too. Let me just say I'm in the comments in this trial. So I'm kind of keeping up with that too.
Well, when you say comments, what do you mean? Like what were you commenting on? Where were you commenting?
It was Law and Crime, and the trial was live. So I was, able to, I'm subscribed to that. So I was able to comment and, talk to everybody in the comments. So people were joining in that were local and people that were not local, some, attorneys and just true crime people that have been watching this case like me. So that was interesting. I added a lot to, the trial.
Yeah.
Just another perspective, other people's perspectives even.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was a lot going on in their marriage. And like I said, she was meeting a lot of people A lot of things were going on.
Mm-hmm.
And on October the 10th, Karen filed for divorce from David Swift. She'd had enough. He was stalking. I mean, she had friends that claimed that he was stalking her and watching her go to these hot tub parties and all these things. So she files for divorce, and she goes on vacation with her friend Kathy Bonus and her husband Bill Bonus.
Bona.
I'm sorry, Bona. And she goes on to Orange Beach with them.
Mm-hmm.
They had bought they had like a big condo rented, and another couple had backed out. Karen told Kathy she didn't really want to be, didn't really want to be there when David was served these papers.
Yeah. Well, and so everybody knows Orange Beach, Sugar Beach, all that area is in the Gulf Shores region of Alabama.
Right. So she goes down there, and he served the divorce papers, and she comes back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when she gets back, they stay in the same house.
Wait. He serves the divorce papers, or she does?
He has served the papers. So she files with her attorney. And, we talked about last week who paid for this divorce.
Well, we've talked about it a couple of times in both episodes previously. Yeah.
Right. And it was rumored that she was having an affair with several people. But we kind of found out that this money was lended to her from Kathy and Bill Bona.
Yeah, but go back to the rumor. What was the rumor? She was having an affair with one of the sales.
With one of the sales. That's right.
And that they paid for it.
And it was unclear to me which sales it was. Okay.
Right.
So that was made clear a little bit later in the comments as well on on this trial. So so she borrowed $2,000 and had a contract even written up with Bill Bona saying, I'm going to pay you back. I'm not going to take this money and just run with it. And she did go file for divorce. And now, before she did that, they also, Bill and Kathy Bona, provided her with another cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
So she had her iPhone that David paid for.
Yeah.
And she had this Voyager phone that was that Bill Bona had for some of his ex-employees, I believe. So those lines were just open. He already had that paid for. Mm-hmm. Karen borrowed $2,000 from them. This contract was written up, and she left that contract at the house when she went to Orange Beach. So David, he found that. And he also found out that she had another phone too. Yeah. There was a record that he had called that Voyager phone that Bill Bona had given her. Mm-hmm. So, I mean,
you can see where some of his rage came from.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, they're married for 22 years. They're both having these affairs with each other. And then Karen starts making these new friends. Yeah. When they move to Dyersburg after the other affair. And I'm not blaming her, but in no way, shape, or form am I blaming her. This is just the perspective that from David, let's say, and what we heard from David, that they moved there and Karen is just, they don't sleep in the same bed anymore.
Haven't for a long time.
She's, saying she's going to Walmart to shop, and he catches her with Kathy Bona. Mm-hmm. He has caught her sneaking out several times, to what he says, and he went and watched her from another neighbor of Kathy and Bill Bona's backyard. Mm-hmm. Miss Helm, he goes to her backyard and he's looking through the fence, and she catches him back there looking through the fence. Miss Helm does, and he's telling her, Karen's over there, and she's doing this and doing that, and he's claimed that he's had to go over to Kathy and Bill Bona's and get Karen, drunk and in bed with Kathy, and There was a lot.
So let's talk about something for a second.
Okay.
He's clearly set a precedent that he is a stalker,
Mhm.
creepy almost. And did he ask that woman's permission to go in her backyard and look through her fence?
Called him.
Caught him. So no, he didn't.
According to her testimony, she did not give him permission. Now, the first time she called him, he said, she said, well, he told her what was going on. And she said, well, there's the fence.
Mm-hmm.
But the second time he asked if he could, and she said no. And he creeped her out.
Yeah.
Creeped her out.
Well, and let's just say that a precedent got set there, but part of the reason this all came to a head was his second wife, who was divorcing him in Alabama at the time of his arrest, made the same sort of claims that he was stalking her.
That's right.
So,
yeah. So Karen, she had enough. And she goes to Orange Beach and comes back. And she's still there with David.
Mm-hmm.
Separate rooms. David's upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
Karen's downstairs.
Now, interesting about him being upstairs, let's talk about why that was tough, because he had suffered an injury to his hip and leg or something.
Right, in April of 2011. So,
yeah, just
several months.
Yeah, but at this time, it didn't make a lot of sense that he would be upstairs because he was apparently on crutches.
Right. So he had this major surgery on his knee in April of 2011 and re-injured. And I'm putting I'm just kind of not sure if that's true. At work on October the 25th of 2011, he was talking to an employee, a fellow employee there. And this fellow employee was also a witness and stated that David was on crutches, and he just kind of had the crutches propped up against the wall. And his knee just gave out.
Yeah.
It just gave out.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was acting. This was part of the state's, accusations of premeditation. That people saw him during or before Karen's disappearance on these crutches, but not really.
Yeah.
It was kind of like for prop.
I
mean, so the Friday night, which would have been the 27th of October, am I right? I think so. Or the 20. No, it would have been the 28th of October. David's on crutches, but they have this, and they're getting this divorce. They're still living together. David's upstairs, Karen's downstairs, but they had this Halloween party and this hayride for the neighborhood kids. So they're still trying to get along, according to David. And they had this Halloween party, and witnesses from the neighborhood that were at this party saw David with the crutches, but getting up and down off the four-wheeler. And actually, the people he got the hay from, saw him baling hay. So he was able to do that.
He wasn't baling hay. He was dragging the hay.
Oh, dragging hay. Okay.
Yeah. And this was again, it's good to bring that up because it's a point of contention when we do get to more of the trial, because they brought that up and said, how could he have lifted hay or drug hay in the condition he was in?
Right.
And actually had an expert at the time testify that it could have been a case where he could drag the hay but not lift it.
Right.
So they used that to try to erase that testimony, but I don't think it worked.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so either or, he's got this injury. They have this party Saturday morning. Karen gets up. She goes to Trimble, Tennessee, and she's cleaning in one of her houses for Habitat of Humanity. Now, let me note that she had already paid back to Bill Bona and Kathy Bona some of this money that she borrowed for the divorce. I think she paid back almost $700 to them, this was important to her that she was going to do this.
Yeah.
And I think she always kind of wanted to work. I think that's something she really wanted to do.
Yeah.
She wanted to feel some independence, and I don't believe David ever gave her that.
Mm-hmm.
So she goes to Trimble, and she's cleaning the house, and David brings his youngest daughter, which would have been Keely, to over to the house with Karen. And I think he brings lunch and maybe helps her move some furniture or whatever, light fixtures, something. Kind of helps her out there. She leaves there, and when she gets home, he proposes that they go out to eat that night.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, "No, I'm not going out to eat with you. I'm going to the farms, to the country club for this Halloween party."
Yeah.
So that, there's that. And I mean, how would I'm asking you as a wife, how would that make you feel? But I'd already filed for divorce, so I guess, that's kind of a stupid question.
Yeah. Given the circumstances, I mean, I don't know that I would shrug that off as your husband, but I probably wouldn't have as much to say about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I don't know. It's odd to me that they were still doing these things together, even in the same house. She left because she was afraid that, of him.
Well, again, go back to his interview with the TBI.
Yeah.
He was always trying to fix or repair or get his way in that relationship.
That's true.
So.
Yeah, that's true. So, he was upset about her, doing that. Ashley, that was the next to the youngest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Child. Yeah, Ashley. Mm-hmm. She was around 9 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
She was spending the night with a friend. And so she wasn't there. And, on this Saturday evening when David was upset. And he says, well, Karen says, "Why don't you take Keely to a movie?"
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Okay, I'll just take Keely to a movie so she won't be upset because her mom's leaving her again." This is what he said.
Mm-hmm.
And he said instead they went to Walmart. She got him a toy, and then he takes her to the mall to Claire's. And while he's at the mall, he sees the neighbor that the fence. He was looking through her fence at the bonus, and he sees her, and he's upset, and he's telling her about Karen not wanting to go out to dinner with him. Instead, she wanted to go to this party at the farms, and he's telling her about this, which is and he's in with his crutches. He's got Keely, and he goes home, and Karen's at the farms, and we talked about the past 2 times we covered this, that at this party that Karen gets into this altercation with someone at the farms and the cameras are stolen. That never was cleared up for me. Was cleared up for me.
Was it even brought up in the trial with David?
It wasn't. It was all the witnesses that were at the farms that night. So the Bonas and a couple other people that were at the farms that night claimed that that there was no altercations at all between Karen and anybody. Everybody was just having a big time. But I do have a seen a video of Daryl Sells, and he is being interviewed. I believe it's before Karen was ever found, and he's talking about his daughter being at the farms that night of the party. And the rumors were that this Dina Sells was her name, was the one that was in this altercation with Karen at the farms, but no witnesses came forward and said that to be true at trial. So that, I'm just going to say that was a rumor. It was never confirmed. And I believe Dina Sells, the accusations were that Karen was having an affair with her husband. There was even accusations that Karen was pregnant by her husband. Let me put that out there too. That was a rumor, not true.
Right.
So, Karen is at this party. She has decided already that she's not going home. Ashley had spent the night with a friend. Keely was at home with David.
Mm-hmm.
So she was going to go spend the night with her friends, Kathy and Bill,
Mm-hmm.
after the party. And she had drove to their house and left her vehicle there and then rode home with them after that party. So they stop at McDonald's. And while they're at McDonald's getting some fries, Karen gets a message or a phone call from Ashley at her friend's house.
Mm-hmm.
And Ashley didn't feel good. She just wanted to come home with her mom.
Mm-hmm.
So Karen goes back, gets her car, and Bill and Kathy, are you sure you can drive? Had a couple drinks, but not a lot. She wasn't just inebriated. She wasn't just bad at all.
Yeah.
And she was fine. So she goes and picks up Ashley, and she arrives back at her home around 2:09 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's picked up on there was like an extender, a Wi-Fi extender on there, or a phone extender, something that helped the connections, the phone connections, at their home, at the Swift home.
Yeah.
And she gets home and it's picked up on on their Wi-Fi or whatever that she's there. And she goes to bed. Now, according to the state and according to David, he gave several different statements about this time. So she gets a message from David and he tells her to come in through the side door that he had already locked up the garage, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, which was unusual. She comes in and Ashley remembers, being there with her mother and her dad being upstairs with Keely. Karen, David says that he talks to Karen, acknowledges that they're home safe, but he doesn't see her.
Or he claims that he doesn't see her.
He claims he doesn't see her. They just talk from him being upstairs and her downstairs.
Yeah.
Then he claims that he does see her and talk to her, but he couldn't remember what she was wearing. And then he claims that he did see her, he did talk to her, and that she was wearing jeans with holes in them and like a gray jacket. Not sure what she had on underneath it. So according to the state, Karen, gets ready for bed and she takes a Tylenol PM.
Mm-hmm.
And she gets in bed with Ashley. David's upstairs in bed with Keely. And, everything from there, according to the state, is that David waits until Karen is good and asleep, but not too long. And he comes downstairs and he brings Keely downstairs too. And he puts her in her bedroom downstairs. And he goes and gets Ashley out of the bed with Karen and puts her in bed with Keely. So if one of them wakes up, they won't be alone. And they'll go back to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And David goes into the bedroom where Karen and Ashley were. And Karen's asleep. And there's an altercation between the two. And he drags her out to the garage.
Mm-hmm.
And he stomps her head in. Her head is on the garage floor. And he stomps her head in.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, he's got this bad leg.
Mm-hmm.
And then he loads her body up into her vehicle, which now let's go back to where, they said that she didn't park in the garage. So he would have had to taken her body out to her vehicle, and taken her out to this cemetery, Bledsoe Cemetery. And out there, he destroys her phones.
Mm-hmm.
And he drags her body And, she was found in just her panties, and they were pulled down around her knees,
Mm-hmm.
as if she had been drugged.
Yeah.
Now, they said he could drag this hay. So, could he drag Karen? She was about 115, 120 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Not a very big woman, very fit. And he throws her out in the kudzu. And he goes back, and he remembers the phones. Okay, so he has those. And he just so happens to um, take the phones and put them on this property of this neighbor that they had issues with before. Last name was Hog Shooter. They had issues with their dogs. He poisoned their dogs. So he actually served time for that, for poisoning the Swift's dogs and then some of the neighbors. I believe the Lamb's dogs. And I might be wrong on that last name. But the Swift's dogs did live.
Yeah.
Um, the neighbor's dogs did not. But the phones were found in the back of his property, both her Voyager phone and her iPhone. And the last ping was at like 5:09, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
in the morning, or 5 o'clock in the morning, around that time.
Mm-hmm.
And he has to clean up that mess. So this was a closed wound to her head, according to, at the beginning of the trial, this is what we found out. But after the pathologist gets on there and talks about the autopsy, we found out that she could have been strangled.
Mm-hmm.
So there might have not been any blood. He could have inflicted this wound on her, maybe not in the garage, but out at Bledsoe Cemetery. After, there might not have been much blood if she was already strangled and was already gone.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a closed head wound. So, I know the head wound was very bad, though. Her skull was crushed in, and fragments of her skull were in her brain.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is, he would have had to go home, and then he takes her vehicle, and he manually inserts a screw into the vehicle, okay? Into the tire, passenger tire,
Mm-hmm.
and the front. And he has to deflate that tire a little bit too, because it didn't really work out that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then he takes that vehicle down a quarter of a mile down the road and leaves it. And about 5:30 in the morning, about maybe 5 a.m. even, this vehicle was there, because witnesses start seeing it. There were some hunters that were going out that saw Karen's vehicle and knew that it was Karen's vehicle just by seeing her around in town. And then another neighbor, Jenny Guerin, she saw her vehicle. I'm sorry, Jenny Lamb saw her vehicle on her way to church. So there were several witnesses that did see Karen's vehicle that morning. Around 10 o'clock, David claims he gets up. He's waking up, and the kids are awake, and he thinks that Karen is just not there.
Mm-hmm.
This is what he says. She's just not there. And it was a common thing for her to not be there, for her to be out doing other things, working out, or maybe she decided to get back out with somebody. Okay. So that's when, he calls a neighbor, or a neighbor calls him and says, well, I've seen her vehicle at the end of the road. I saw her. It's just a quarter of a mile. Now, Karen was fit. She was a runner. If she would have had a flat tire, she would have ran back.
Well, a quarter mile, she's only a few minutes from the house.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was even witnesses that said they heard him. One witness that said she heard the flat tire going by, around 4:35 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
So that's about the time frame there. Yeah. So, all these witnesses are going forth, and we're hearing all these things. There's a lot going on with this. And I guess it's, they're searching. They find her on December the 10th out at Bledsoe. And in between there, So this is where witnesses come in too, because and where the sales come in. There was 3 witnesses actually. I know, like the defense brought in both of the sales kid. I mean, both of the Swift children, Ashley and Dustin.
Right.
And Dustin claims that while he was looking for his mother, that he saw Daryl Sales out by Bledsoe with a metal detector.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually stopped and talked to him and told him that, my mom's missing. And he, if you know anything or if you see anything, just, please let law enforcement know. And Mr. Daryl Sales says that, he lost his watch out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that he was looking for his watch. This is before Karen was found.
Yep.
So, I mean, everybody was looking for her. And according to, the state, David never looked for her. He never looked for her.
No.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was a lot that was the basic thing that I heard through for the state of Tennessee was that he was a stalker. But I couldn't, there was no DNA evidence on Karen's body. Mm-hmm. None. There was no sexual abuse. When the pathologist gets up there, he says she could have died from strangulation, not blunt force trauma. So the state coming in really hard and saying, at opening statements that her head was stomped into the garage floor, mm-hmm. That was a big statement to make because there was no blood. TBI comes in very quickly, and local Dyer County Sheriff's Department comes in pretty quick after, like the day after she goes missing. She's reported missing very quick. So, I mean, they're in the Swift home, and David lets them in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's not keeping them away, and he's not refusing to talk to them.
Right.
So he is being fairly cooperative.
He's like, God, I'm glad she's gone.
Well,
and it's not that he said that. It's just that he's not emotional, and he actually tries to joke with him, and it's crazy.
Right. He wouldn't look him in the eyes when he was talking about Karen. I mean, he was, but he was going, like you said, when we were watching it, he was looking at both the, investigators trying to bring them in to his story, his narrative.
Right.
And his was that Karen, was wild and uncontrollable, and that he let her do whatever she wanted to. Mm-hmm. He just wanted to make sure she was safe.
Well, and that he actually participated in some of her escapades too, and it just wasn't his thing to do, and it wasn't his thing to drink. So I don't know if that was a symptom of trying to remove himself from anything, but yeah, he even admitted that he had participated.
He claimed so. TBI asked him during this, interview with him if he was part of this, participated in these swinging groups mm-hmm. with Karen, and he says, "No, I've never physically participated, mm-hmm. but she would go out and to Kathy and Bill's and come back and talk to me about it, mm-hmm. And it was just like, he'd say, she kept telling me that Kathy really wanted to be with me mm-hmm. instead of Bill. It was just, he was creeping me out with that. Yeah. And then he goes into this story about how he found this glass dildo in her coat pocket. And he was
this was after she'd gone to Nashville to do her training,
which was a couple weeks before she was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
He says that, he finds this glass dildo in her pocket, I believe her jacket pocket or something. And he's like, why would you have this? And then her panties, he says that her panties are in the floorboard of her vehicle when she got back from that training trip in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean.
Yeah, when he confronted her about that, she said that, she just left class and had to change, and she stopped at a convenience store and changed. And
yeah,
you know, he was like, well, why didn't you put your panties in your bag? Why are they in your floorboard?
And it's like, the way you said panties creeped me out anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Just, and I'm sorry, but it just makes me sad. It makes me sad for Karen because she was painting. Here you are in the South. I mean, you're in Tennessee, the Bible Belt.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she just wanted out of this creepy marriage. And she was not creepy.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted to hang out and she wanted to work. She wanted to be independent. She wanted to be away from David.
Yeah.
And
yeah, he came across to me like he's just a knot on a log, and she was outgoing and
deal if she had a dildo. I mean, lighten up, dude. I mean, it's your wife. And maybe if he was, I'm not, now the swinging part, I mean, but like, I don't know, just, you're sitting there in the South, and I just felt like, I don't know, I felt like she was being portrayed as this tramp, you know, and that didn't deserve justice.
mm-hmm.
And she does.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, yeah, during this, I got very involved because I felt like, you know, this poor woman, you know, she's had 4 kids. He's never let her even provide for herself, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
she just wants to get away out of this marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And she just couldn't. I mean, he wasn't going to let it happen. So the verdict and the jury and all this good stuff, we get to the end, you know, we get to that good part, and I'm waiting. And I'm in these comments, and, you know, they're talking about, there's witnesses that said, you know, these rumors about the Sales who had all this money, you know, and there was extortion cases, you know, that went on through between the Sales and Heather Cohen,
Mm-hmm.
you know, a private investigator. So, I mean, there was a lot going on behind the scenes. So we get to the end, and I'm everybody in the comments of this, you know, live trial. And it's like, okay, what do you think? What do you vote? And I went with hung jury. You know, I thought there's no way, there's no DNA evidence whatsoever. Really, when the closing statements, the state had to change up a little bit. You know, the closing arguments, it's like they had to change things up a little bit because they said, you know, at first her head was stomped in. There was no DNA. There was no blood evidence. The only slight amount of blood evidence that was found was not human.
Mm-hmm.
And they claimed that there was a pool, like there was an above ground pool behind the Swift's house with a bunch of bleach around it, a bunch of bleach bottles. And they say that he cleaned up everything with those bleach, you know, those bleach, those bottles back there. But now when Dustin Swift was on the stand, he said, that's what we cleaned our pool with. This was almost November. So, I mean, they wouldn't be using the pool even as hot as it gets in the sea. It's not that hot in November or the end of October.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, usually the pool is done by then.
Yeah.
But investigators say, well, the pool had not been cleaned. You could tell that it'd just been sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the bleach bottles looked fresh there or what, but, you know.
Well, and the TBI also said that they conducted luminol tests in the garage.
And there was no evidence that there was any foul play. So that makes me wonder, was she, and there was no DNA evidence in the vehicle either,
right.
Karen's vehicle. And that's supposedly what he loaded her in and disposed of her body with.
Yeah.
And it just, here's my issue with the whole thing. It just didn't fit. I mean, if it would have happened, you know, 10 years ago, this trial, I think that they could have pulled it off a lot better.
Yeah, it may have been a different outcome. Yeah.
But the verdict. So the jury, you know, I'm waiting. And I believe it was like the 6th of June is when it might have been the 6th. It was a Wednesday when they closed, closing arguments, and the jury goes to deliberate and on into Thursday, all through Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes back, and he is not guilty of all charges except for the last, which was what was that? Homicide, right?
Manslaughter.
Manslaughter. I'm sorry, manslaughter. He that was a hung jury on that
On that charge.
So what does that mean? He's not guilty of first degree, not guilty of second degree, not guilty of premeditated, all that. And there's a hung jury for manslaughter. So do they have much evidence? Do they have to have? I mean, what would it take?
I don't know, but it sounds to me like the judge left the window open for them, if they do find more evidence, to come back on that charge of manslaughter.
Yeah.
If they will. I don't think they will. I mean, there was even some banter in court about this being a political move.
That had to be thrown out. But that was one of the things that had to be thrown out. There was also some text messages between Kathy Bona and Karen that were asked to be disregarded as well. And it was even some of Karen claiming that David was scaring her, and that she had taken the kids and put them in another room with her.
Yeah.
Because she was afraid of him. But they made like I said, the judge had to be thrown out to the jury, which it was already on their ears though.
Yeah.
But,
Well, and that's a trend we see in these cold cases, is that, law enforcement or political people will bring these up during election cycles as kind of a false hope for the constituency.
I hate that.
To think that they're going to do something. And, it gets brought up and then nothing ever happens. So we've got several cases like that.
Yeah. I wish they could do that.
Yeah.
I wish they wouldn't do that. I mean, to be honest. I mean, look, we said it with the Debbie and Ambria case.
Mm-hmm.
This is the election move that it's slimy.
Mm-hmm.
It's slimy. And the defense did bring it up. And they did bring this up in the Swift trial.
Yep.
And it was, the judge asked the jury to deaf ear that.
Yeah.
So, sure. I mean, it's open, and I hope that there is justice for Karen someday, but it doesn't look good.
Right.
And the kids, I mean, so David and Karen's kids, the two that did testify, Ashley and Dustin, both, love their dad. I mean, they claim that he was there that night, every night with them, that he always took care of them.
Mm-hmm.
He gave them a good life, and he provided for them. And, disappointed, I could tell that, that their mother, I don't know how to put this without sounding like, I don't know. It just seemed like they may have heard from David Swift over the years that their mom was acting up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even like to put it like that, but and bad things happen, but he didn't do it. And it just seems like they believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I think he did it.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I think he did it. And I think that, I think he got away with it. I think that, like I said, Bible Belt in the South, and a woman that is doing things that these people don't believe in, she doesn't get as much justice as she deserves.
Right.
So.
No, I agree with you. Well, it's again, like many of the cold cases, just don't hold out a lot of hope that they'll go anywhere.
Yeah.
because of things like that.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they purposefully look the other way while enough time passes that it can be a situation like this.
And leaving it open like this,
Mm-hmm.
now rumors are really going to go crazy. You know, that back to what it was before, you know. So that's sad. That's sad for Karen, that she can't be remembered in her life. That has to be all about her murder.
Yeah.
And it not being, justice. So.
Well, that was the, I guess, fortunate for few and unfortunate for few that this is the outcome for Karen Swift. I don't see it going anywhere else.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank everybody for listening in and watching us. And again, go back and review some of those other episodes so you can kind of understand the context that we put some of the stuff here in. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe when you do, and share these videos. And we appreciate it more than you know.
Yes.
And look forward to getting you more content out soon. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.